The heat of the late afternoon hung thick over the savannah, the long shadows of acacia trees stretching across the cracked earth. A lone figure lay beside the narrow dirt trail, a great lion whose golden fur was matted with dust and streaked with darker patches that hinted at dried blood. Its chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths, each exhale accompanied by a faint, rasping groan that broke the stillness of the air. The rhythm was irregular, fragile, and it drew the eyes of the conservationist moving slowly along the path. She paused, instinctively lowering her voice, her body careful not to startle the magnificent creature. Even from a distance, she could see the weight of suffering pressing down on it, and she knew each second was precious. The lion's eyes fluttered open briefly, golden irises clouded with fatigue, and then closed again. Its head rolled slightly to the side, resting on the dusty ground, ears twitching at the distant hum of insects and the soft rustle of dry grasses. The conservationist moved deliberately, each step measured, boots brushing softly against the earth. She knelt at a cautious distance, observing the animal's limbs, noting the way one rear leg seemed to drag unnaturally, the subtle tremor that ran through its flanks with each breath. Her hands hovered at her sides, ready but not imposing, waiting for a moment that would allow her to assess without causing panic. A low wind carried the scent of dry soil, mingled with the metallic tang of blood and the faint musk of the lion itself. It exhaled sharply once, a small hiss of discomfort, its head lifting slightly as if testing the world around it, then sagging back with a weary surrender. In those moments, the air between human and animal held a fragile understanding, a recognition of vulnerability and care. Slowly she whispered almost to herself, "It's okay, girl." The words barely moved the silence, but the softness seemed to ease the tension in the lion's muscles just enough for her to see it breathe more steadily, its eyes half opening to track her calm presence. Its coat, streaked with mud and clumps of dried grass, glinted faintly in the fading light. Flies circled lazily, yet the lion did not swat or move aggressively. Exhaustion had drained the reflexes of even the most primal defenses. Each shallow groan seemed to mark a pulse of pain, the subtle rise and fall of its ribcage a silent story of endurance. The conservationist noted the jagged edge of a wound on its flank, the raw pink tissue stark against golden fur. Her mind catalogued every sign, the shallow breathing, the strained leg, the tension along its spine, while her hands itched to act, to offer support without risk, to bridge the gap between life and death with careful, measured motion. She waited, patient and unwavering as the sun edged lower, casting the savannah in muted amber tones. The lion's breathing remained fragile but steady, each movement tentative, every sound carrying the weight of survival. The world around them felt paused, the distant cries of birds and rustling leaves blending into a quiet vigil shared between two beings, each aware of the other's presence yet separated by instinct and circumstance. The conservationist exhaled slowly, her eyes never leaving the lion, the space between them holding a quiet promise of care, of time granted, of hope measured in cautious breaths. The afternoon light softened, spilling across the savannah in streaks of amber and dust, and the conservationist remained crouched a careful distance from the lion. Each shallow breath of the animal revealed more of its condition, subtle signs that had been masked in the haze of exhaustion. Its rear leg, tucked awkwardly beneath its massive body, was bent at an unnatural angle. The fur was torn and darkened with blood that had begun to crust along the edges of the wound. Small tremors ran through the limb whenever the lion shifted, tiny muscles spasming under the strain. The great animal let out a soft grunt, a sound barely audible over the whisper of dry grass, and then rolled its head to the side, eyes narrowing against the sting of pain and effort. The conservationist's gaze followed the movements carefully, cataloging the evidence of injury, noting the way the lion avoided putting weight on the leg, how it drew its claws slightly into the dirt, a gesture of instinctive defense, not aggression. Around them, the world carried on in its quiet rhythm. A breeze stirred the tall grasses, bending them in a slow, undulating wave. Insects hummed faintly, and the distant cry of a hornbill echoed across the horizon. The lion's chest rose and fell unevenly, each exhale rasping against the stillness. Its golden fur, dulled with dust and stained by dried blood, seemed almost to shimmer in the shifting light. The conservationist moved a hand slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face as she studied the animal's eyes. There was no sign of panic now, only exhaustion, vulnerability, and the faintest flicker of trust as she maintained a steady presence. Her mind weighed the options, balancing urgency against caution. To intervene could save the leg, perhaps the life, of this solitary predator, yet any misstep might trigger a defensive reaction. She whispered softly, almost under her breath, "You're almost there." The words were less an instruction than a quiet bridge, an acknowledgement of the struggle the lion was enduring in silence. She observed the rhythm of its breathing, the subtle tensing and relaxing of muscles along its flanks, the cautious shifts of its head to scan the surrounding plains. Each motion told a story of pain, endurance, and the fragile boundary between survival and collapse. The leg, bent unnaturally at the knee, revealed not just injury but a deeper vulnerability. The wound was open, ragged along the edges, and flecks of blood still dampened the fur around it. Every careful shift of the limb sent shivers through the body, and the conservationist could feel the weight of responsibility pressing quietly against her chest. She remained calm, patient, allowing the lion space while marking the movements of the leg, the subtle flex of the paw, the faint tremor in the claws. Respecting the animal's space was as crucial as offering care. She adjusted her posture slightly, her hands motionless but ready, observing how the lion seemed to measure her presence, accepting it without fear yet maintaining instinctive caution. The sun dipped lower, the amber light deepening into muted gold. The lion lay mostly still, chest rising and falling with strained rhythm, leg curled awkwardly beneath it, every movement a testament to vulnerability and quiet endurance. The conservationist exhaled slowly, her eyes soft but alert, acknowledging the fragility of this moment. The balance between distance and intervention, respect and urgency, hung in the warm, still air, a silent pact observed in the quiet dialogue of patience, awareness and care. The sun dipped lower toward the horizon, spilling long golden streaks across the dry grasses and casting the savannah in warm, fading light. The lion shifted slightly, its heavy head lifting with cautious effort, eyes tracking the conservationist's slow, deliberate movements. Its breathing remained shallow, but the rhythm was steadier than before, and there was a flicker of curiosity, subtle and wary, in its gaze. Each step she took was measured, deliberate, designed to convey patience rather than threat, and the great cat seemed to sense it, allowing her to inch a little closer with each passing moment. Her hand hovered over a small bag of meat, carefully prepared, offering sustenance without forcing proximity, a gentle extension of care. The lion lowered its head, sniffing the air with tentative interest, nostrils flaring as it detected the scent of food. Its ears flicked to the side, alert but not rigid, tail twitching lazily in the dust. Slowly, with a soft grunt of effort, it extended a paw forward, dragging it lightly over the ground in the direction of the meat. The conservationist remained still, watching, her breath slow and quiet, and whispered almost to herself, "It's okay, girl." The words were soft, carrying no command, only a quiet acknowledgement of struggle, and the lion's golden eyes softened fractionally, the tension along its flanks easing just enough to allow the fragile bridge of trust to form. Around them, the savannah shifted in the gentle evening light. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of wild grasses and distant water. A breeze stirred the dust in eddies, rustling the sparse leaves of acacia trees. The lion's fur glimmered dimly in the amber light, matted and streaked, yet the glow of the sun highlighted the curve of its massive shoulders and the subtle strength that lingered beneath exhaustion. Each movement was careful, a shift of weight, a slow blink, a tentative sniff toward the offered food. The conservationist observed each gesture, noting the delicate balance between hunger and fear, between vulnerability and the instinctive caution of a predator who had lived most of its life untamed. With patience, she set a small portion of meat a few feet away, letting it rest in the dust. The lion crouched slightly, head low, nose close to the morsel, and in the quiet, she could see the faintest tremor of anticipation ripple through its limbs. Slowly, deliberately, it began to eat, eyes flicking occasionally toward her, muscles relaxing incrementally with each bite. The interaction was minimal but profoundly significant. A subtle trust was forming, fragile as the shifting light, and the conservationist allowed herself the quiet satisfaction of progress, knowing that the bond was built not through force but through the unhurried patience of presence. As the sun sank further, casting the horizon in shades of rose and gold, the lion finished the small portion, lifting its head to regard her with measured attention. Its breathing was steady now, less ragged, and its posture, though tired, carried a hint of calm readiness. She exhaled slowly, hands resting lightly at her sides, and for the first time since finding the animal, she sensed a quiet understanding passing between them, a recognition of care offered, accepted, and reciprocated, even in the most instinctive of ways. The world softened around them, and for a few moments human and wild creatures shared the fragile, unspoken connection of trust in the fading light of day. The sun had nearly slipped below the horizon, and the savannah was bathed in muted shades of amber and violet. The conservationist rose slowly, gathering his small bag of supplies, every movement deliberate to avoid alarming the lion. He had spent hours close to the great animal, observing its breathing, offering small bites of food, and allowing trust to grow between them, tentative as the evening breeze. The lion shifted its massive head, eyes following his motions, and a subtle tension ran through its flanks. Yet instead of retreating, it made a low, soft rumble, almost a call, that carried more curiosity than warning. He paused, sensing something different in the tone, a quiet insistence in the way its gaze flicked past him toward the thicket nearby. The tall grasses swayed gently, stirred by a soft wind, and shadows lengthened across the cracked earth. The conservationist crouched again, scanning the area the lion had indicated, his eyes tracing the slight movement of leaves and the faint outline of shapes hidden in the undergrowth. There, barely visible, a small head peeked through the grass. A cub, no more than a few weeks old, trembling lightly but alert, watching its injured mother with wide, cautious eyes. The lion lowered its body closer to the ground, ears tilted forward, tail curling slightly in a protective arc. Its gaze flicked repeatedly between the cub and the man, a silent communication that spoke of warning and trust in equal measure. The cub's fur was soft and golden, slightly damp with morning dew or perhaps the sweat of hiding, and its tiny paws flexed as it tested the ground beneath it. Its presence had been carefully concealed, the mother's instinct ensuring its safety from threats, even from the distant predators that prowled the savannah at night. The conservationist's breath caught quietly in his chest, his attention absorbed by the fragile life before him. He moved slowly, hands low, speaking barely above a whisper, "I see you." The cub blinked, uncertain, ears twitching at the soft sound, while the mother remained still, eyes locked on him, testing his intentions and patience. Time stretched, filled with the subtle language of movement and observation. The lion nudged the ground gently with its massive paw, a motion that suggested both caution and encouragement, guiding the conservationist's attention without threat. The cub, encouraged by the quiet signals, inched forward slightly, nose to the dirt, sniffing the unfamiliar air. Its small body quivered with uncertainty, yet the presence of the mother, calm but vigilant, lent it a sense of security. Around them, the world moved slowly, the wind lifting dust in golden shafts, a distant bird calling softly, the acacia leaves whispering in rhythm with the fading light. The conservationist exhaled softly, heart heavy with the weight of realization. The lion had not only survived injury but had hidden and protected the next generation, revealing a secret of endurance and maternal instinct that went unnoticed until now. The mother's eyes held a quiet intensity, a depth of vigilance and connection that spoke louder than any gesture, showing him the resilience that bound predator and cub, life and survival, in the harsh expanse of the savannah. He paused, giving them space, letting the moment settle, a quiet understanding passing between all three beings in the soft twilight of evening. The first pale light of evening had faded into a soft, lingering twilight, and the savannah seemed to exhale, the long grasses swaying gently in the cooling breeze. The lion rose with deliberate slowness, each movement careful, the injured leg still stiff but bearing its weight with effort. Behind her, the small cub mirrored every motion, stepping lightly on unsteady paws, ears flicking with curiosity and caution. The mother paused once, head low, amber eyes scanning the horizon as if measuring the world beyond the trail, before nudging the cub forward with the tip of her muzzle. Step by cautious step, they moved from the shadowed thicket into the open plains, blending slowly with the tall grasses that bent and rustled around them. The conservationist lingered a few paces behind, observing without interference. Every sway of tail, every flick of ear, every careful placement of paw told the story of endurance, of survival earned through instinct and vigilance. The lion's breathing, though uneven at first, had steadied. The small rises and falls of her chest seemed in harmony with the rustle of the wind through the acacia leaves. The cub's tiny snuffles and tentative steps punctuated the quiet rhythm, a delicate accompaniment to the muted whispers of the savannah. The man's hands rested lightly at his sides, unthreatening, as if to confirm his respect for the fragile trust that had been forged over hours of patient observation. They paused near a gentle rise in the land, the grasses parting to reveal a sweeping vista of golden plains stretching to the horizon. The mother crouched momentarily, the cub nestled close to her side, before lifting her head and gazing back in a silent acknowledgement, amber eyes meeting the calm, steady gaze of the man. He gave a quiet nod, a soft exhalation carrying more meaning than words could hold, and then allowed himself to step back, merging into the shadowed edge of the trail. The lion's ears flicked once, and then she turned fully, guiding her cub further into the openness, each step purposeful yet unhurried, a careful balance of protection and cautious freedom. The savannah seemed to expand around them, its stillness stretching into the coming night. Distant silhouettes of acacia trees softened in the fading light, and the gentle hum of nocturnal insects began to stir, mingling with the whisper of wind through the grasses. The mother and cub moved steadily, the golden fur of each catching the last warmth of sunlight as they disappeared into the folds of the landscape. The man remained for a few moments longer, breathing in the quiet, letting the memory of their interaction settle within him. The fragile trust, the careful gestures, the unspoken bond of respect and survival. Finally, he turned and walked slowly along the dirt trail, leaving the lion and her cub to their world, carrying the weight of what he had witnessed. In the hush of the savannah, the wind lifted the scent of earth and grass, brushing across the trail and carrying with it a quiet testament to resilience, life, and patience. Somewhere ahead, a distant herd moved, a soft rustle that seemed to echo the pulse of the plains. And as night descended fully, the man paused one last time, eyes tracing the fading shapes of mother and cub, and then stepped onward, leaving them in the openness, alive, cautious, and free, their survival etched into the enduring rhythm of the land.